June 13th, 1944, Normandy, France, 0947 hours. The morning hung heavy over the hedgerows of Villers-Bocage, thick with diesel smoke and the acrid stench of cordite. SS Oberscharführer Ernst Weber pressed his eye against the Turmselfenrohr optic of his Tiger I, watching the road below through 8 feet of armoured steel. His hands, calloused from 3 years of tank warfare across 2 continents, rested steady on the traverse wheel. The summer heat had not yet broken the chill of the Norman dawn, and condensation fogged the edges of his vision. Through the haze, he saw them coming, a column of American M4 Shermans, their olive-drab hulls adorned with white stars that seemed almost naive in their brightness, rolling forward with what he could only interpret as either courage or ignorance, perhaps both. Weber had destroyed 11 Soviet T-34 seconds at Kursk. He had burned British crusaders in the Western Desert. He understood the mathematics of armoured warfare with the cold precision of a surgeon: armour thickness, muzzle velocity, penetration values at range. His Tiger mounted the 88mm Kebuk 36 litres, 56 gun, a weapon that could punch through 4 inches of face-hardened steel at 2,000 metres. The Sherman's frontal armour measured 51mm at its thickest point, sloped at 56 degrees. A simple equation, a certain outcome. He adjusted the range drum. 1,200 metres. The lead Sherman had stopped to reconnoitre, its commander's hatch open, a young officer scanning the hedgerows with binoculars that caught the morning light. Weber felt no hatred for this man. 3 years of war had burned away such luxuries. There was only the geometry of killing, the ballistics tables memorized in training grounds at Paderborn, the muscle memory of elevation and windage. Panzergranate, he called to his loader. Armour-piercing shell. The breech clunked shut. Weber centered the reticle on the Sherman's hull, just below the turret ring where the ammunition was stored. He exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The Tiger's cannon roared a sound like God's own hammer striking an anvil. The shell crossed 1,200 metres of Norman countryside in less than 2 seconds, travelling at 773 metres per second, carrying the kinetic energy of a freight train compressed into a tungsten cord projectile the diameter of a man's fist. It struck the Sherman's glacis plate at a perfect 90-degree angle. Weber watched through his optic for the familiar bloom of orange fire, the eruption of ammunition cooking off, the turret lifting skyward on a pillar of explosive decompression. He had seen this sequence dozens of times. The angles were perfect, the mathematics were infallible. The Sherman shuddered. Metal shrieked. Sparks showered across its hull like a 4th of July celebration Weber had seen once in a captured American newsreel. The shell had penetrated, he was certain of it, but the tank did not explode. It did not brew up, as the British tankers said. Instead, after a moment that seemed to stretch into geological time, the Sherman's engine coughed once, twice, then roared back to life. Black smoke belched from its exhausts. And then, impossibly, it began moving again. Not retreating. Forward. Weber blinked, certain his optics had fogged. "Noch einmal," he muttered. Again. His loader slammed another round home. Weber fired. The second shell struck the Sherman's turret side, another perfect shot, another penetration he could calculate with certainty. The turret rang like a cathedral bell. Paint vaporized. Metal glowed white-hot where the tungsten core punched through. The Sherman kept coming. And now Weber saw, with a creeping sense of something he had not felt since Stalingrad, that the first Sherman was not alone. Behind it, emerging from the morning mist like some industrial manifestation of America itself, came another Sherman, and another, and 5 more, and 10 more, an entire company of them, 37 tons each, rolling forward at 25 miles per hour, their 75mm guns traversing toward his position with the unhurried confidence of inevitability. 3 years earlier, in the winter of 1941, Ernst Weber had been a true believer. He had stood in formation at the Henschel plant in Kassel, watching the first Tiger I roll off the production line. and he had believed with the fervor of youth and ideology that Germany had achieved something unprecedented in the history of warfare. The Tiger weighed 54 tons. Its frontal armor measured 100 millimeters thick, sloped and face-hardened. Its gun could destroy any Allied tank at ranges where return fire was mathematically impossible. The Führer himself had declared it the instrument of final victory, and Weber, 23 years old and raised on Leni Riefenstahl films and Hitler Youth campfire songs, had believed every word. The propaganda films had shown German technology as superior, German engineering as unmatched, German will as unbreakable. Wochenschau newsreels played in every cinema across the Reich, showing tigers crushing everything in their path, while narrators spoke in reverent tones about Wunderwaffen wonder weapons that would restore the glory of the fatherland. Weber had memorized the statistics. The Tiger's armor was twice as thick as any Soviet tank. Its gun could penetrate enemy armor at distances where the enemy couldn't even see the Tiger. Each Tiger was worth 5 enemy tanks, 10 enemy tanks, 15. The mathematics of superiority had been encoded into every aspect of his training. At the Panzertruppenschule, instructors had drilled it into cadets. Quality over quantity. One German tank crew, properly trained and equipped, could defeat an entire platoon of inferior enemy armor. It was not mere propaganda, it was engineering reality, proven by ballistics tests, validated by combat reports from every front. But the newsreels had never shown what Ernst Weber now understood with terrifying clarity. America did not care about the mathematics. The Sherman tank, designated by the U.S. Army as medium tank M4, was by any technical measure inferior to the Tiger I in nearly every category that mattered to conventional armored warfare doctrine. Its armor was thinner. Its gun was smaller. Its speed was comparable, but its cross-country mobility was inferior on soft ground. German intelligence reports, compiled by the Waffenamt and distributed to Wehrmacht commanders in early 1944, had dismissed the Sherman as a mediocre design, adequate for exploitation, but unsuitable for direct engagement with German medium or heavy tanks. Those reports were not incorrect. In a duel between a Tiger and a Sherman on level ground at medium range, the Tiger would win 95 times out of 100. The Sherman's 75mm M3 gun, firing an armor-piercing round at standard combat ranges, could not penetrate a Tiger's frontal armor. The Tiger's 88mm could destroy a Sherman from the front, side, or rear at distances exceeding 2,000 meters. These were facts, validated by metallurgy and physics. But the reports had missed something fundamental, something that could not be measured in millimeters of armor or muzzle velocity. America had not designed the Sherman to win duels. America had designed the Sherman to win wars. In June of 1944, when Ernst Weber's Tiger Company rolled into Normandy, Germany was producing 25 Tigers per month. The Tiger I production line, operating at maximum capacity across 3 manufacturing plants, had built exactly 1,347 Tigers since 1942. Each Tiger required 300,000 man-hours to construct. Each Tiger consumed components from 6,000 different suppliers. Each Tiger needed specialized railway cars to transport it, specialized recovery vehicles to tow it when it broke down, which was frequently, as the Tiger's Maybach HL 230 engine was temperamental, and its overlapping road wheel suspension was prone to freezing in winter conditions. America, in that same month of June, 1,944 built 1,504 Sherman tanks, not for the entire war, for that single month. The Fisher Body Division of General Motors was producing Shermans in a repurposed automobile plant in Grand Blanc, Michigan, where workers who had built Buick sedans the previous year now built tanks on an assembly line that completed one Sherman every 60 minutes. The Ford Motor Company's River Rouge plant produced complete Sherman powertrains at a rate of 50 per day. The Chrysler Corporation's Detroit Arsenal tank plant operated 24 hours daily, 3 shifts, 7 days a week, employing 10,000 workers who could disassemble and reassemble a complete Sherman transmission in under 4 hours. By the summer of 1944, America had built 49,234 Sherman tanks, and they were still accelerating production. Weber fired his third round at the lead Sherman. This time he aimed for the tracks, hoping to immobilize it. The shot struck true, the track shattered, links spraying across the hedgerow like shrapnel. The Sherman slewed sideways, through its remaining track, and ground to a halt. Weber allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. Disabled. Mission accomplished. He traversed his turret toward the next target in line. The disabled Sherman's turret was still moving. Its gun was still active. And as Weber watched, the Sherman's loader hatch popped open. Not to evacuate, to ventilate. The crew was staying inside, maintaining their gun in action, even though their vehicle could no longer maneuver. They were using the disabled tank as a stationary pillbox, covering the advance of the other Shermans behind them. This was not what Soviet tank crews did. When a T-34 was disabled, the crew evacuated immediately. The Soviet doctrine emphasized preservation of trained personnel over equipment, because equipment was replaceable, but training took months. British tank crews followed similar protocols, but these Americans were staying with their dead tank, still fighting, while their comrades maneuvered around them. And the other Shermans were not retreating. They were spreading out, using the disabled tank as a pivot point, flanking left and right through the hedgerows. Weber's Tiger was dug into a superior defensive position, hull down behind earthworks, with clear fields of fire. But the Shermans were not attempting to engage him frontally. They were moving to his flanks, accepting casualties to close the distance, and more importantly, more horrifyingly, there were too many of them to track simultaneously. Weber destroyed a second Sherman at 800 meters. Perfect shot, center mass, ammunition detonation. The Sherman exploded with the spectacular violence that was supposed to happen every time. But before Weber could traverse to the next target, 3 more Shermans had advanced another 100 meters. He destroyed a third Sherman, 4 more advanced. The mathematics of attrition were inverting. For every Sherman he killed, 2 more moved closer. His radio crackled. Lieutenant Kaufmann, commanding the Tiger to Weber's left. I count 16 enemy tanks, more arriving from the west. Recommend we withdraw to secondary positions. Withdraw. The word was anathema. Tigers did not withdraw from Shermans. Tigers were apex predators. Shermans were prey. But Weber looked through his optic at the advancing line of olive-drab hulls, at the disabled Sherman still firing from its immobilized position. At the American infantry he could now see dismounting from half-tracks behind the tank column, and he understood with a sickening clarity that the mathematics had changed. The Americans were not trying to win a fair fight. They were drowning him in numbers that made fairness irrelevant. There was a sound that haunted German tank crews in the summer of 1944, a sound that appeared in their letters home, their diary entries, their whispered conversations in field hospitals and prisoner-of-war camps. It was not the sound of the Sherman's gun firing the 75mm M3 made a sharp, high-pitched crack that was distinctive but not particularly intimidating. It was not the sound of Sherman tracks on cobblestone roads, or the whine of their Continental R975 radial engines. It was the sound of more Shermans arriving. Always more Shermans. Panzer Commander Hans von Luck, who fought against American armor in Normandy with the 21st Panzer Division, wrote in his combat journal, "We could destroy 5 Shermans with ease, 10 with effort, 15 with difficulty. But they would send 20, and when we had destroyed 20, they would send 30. And our Tigers, irreplaceable, slowly accumulated damage with each engagement, a damaged road wheel, a stressed transmission, a gun barrel approaching its fatigue limit while their Shermans. Each destroyed tank was simply replaced by fresh machines that arrived within days. The American replacement system was something German logistics officers struggled to comprehend. When a Sherman was destroyed in combat, the crew, if they survived, were given a replacement tank within 72 hours on average, often within 24 hours. The replacement tank arrived with a full load of ammunition, full fuel tanks, fresh supplies, and maintenance parts. If the tank's gun needed replacement, that could be accomplished in a field depot in under 6 hours. If the engine needed replacement, a crane lifted the damaged power pack out and dropped a fresh one in within a single day. When a Tiger was destroyed, the replacement process took months. If a Tiger's engine failed, the entire tank had to be shipped by rail back to Germany for depot-level maintenance. If a Tiger's transmission broke, a common occurrence, as the Tiger's transmission was under-engineered for the tank's weight, the tank was often simply abandoned, because recovering and repairing it required specialized equipment that did not exist in forward areas. By June 1944, Germany had lost more Tigers to mechanical breakdown and abandonment than to enemy fire. The Sherman's technical simplicity, dismissed by German engineers as primitive, had become a strategic advantage that German doctrine had no answer for. The Sherman used a commercial truck engine, the Continental R975, derived from an aircraft radial engine already in mass production. When that engine broke, any mechanic familiar with radial engines could repair it using standard tools. The Sherman's transmission was adapted from a civilian tractor design. Its suspension used vertical volute springs that could be replaced by 3 men with sledgehammers and wrenches in under an hour. The Tiger used a custom-designed Maybach V12 engine that required specialized tools and factory-trained mechanics. Its transmission used helical gears machined to tolerances of 0.02 millimeters. Its overlapping road wheel suspension, an elegant engineering solution that distributed weight beautifully, required removing up to 8 road wheels to replace a single inner wheel, a process that took a full day even with experienced crews. Elegance had become a liability, complexity had become a vulnerability, and simplicity, American simplicity, had become an unstoppable force. Weber's Tiger fired 11 rounds that morning. He achieved 7 confirmed penetrations hits that should have destroyed 7 Shermans. 4 of those Shermans burned. 3 of them kept fighting. The reason became clear only after the battle, when Wehrmacht intelligence officers examined, destroyed Shermans, and compiled reports that circulated through panzer units with a mixture of disbelief and grudging admiration. The Americans had begun installing wet ammunition storage systems in their newer Sherman models. The ammunition racks were surrounded by water glycol jackets that absorbed heat and suppressed fires. When a penetrating round struck the ammunition storage area, the catastrophic hit that should have caused instant detonation, the water jackets bought seconds, sometimes minutes, for the crew to activate fire suppression systems or evacuate. More importantly, American tank doctrine emphasized crew survival in ways that German doctrine did not. Sherman crews trained extensively in emergency evacuation procedures. They drilled evacuating through every hatch, in darkness, with smoke simulation. They practiced dragging wounded crew members through hatches while wearing full gear. The Sherman was designed with crew survivability as a primary consideration. Hatches were larger and easier to open than German tank hatches. Escape routes were more numerous, and the interior layout prioritized rapid evacuation over ammunition storage efficiency. The result was that Sherman crews had a survival rate nearly double that of German tank crews, and surviving crews were immediately placed into new Shermans and returned to combat within days, bringing their experience and training with them. Germany was not just losing tanks, Germany was losing irreplaceable trained crews who took months to train and could not be quickly replaced. America was preserving its trained crews, who accumulated experience and became more effective with each engagement, even as their tanks were destroyed and replaced with fresh machines. The Tiger was a masterpiece of engineering designed to win battles. The Sherman was an adequate design engineered to win wars. And in the hedgerows of Normandy, Weber was learning the difference. By 1100 hours, Weber's Tiger had been flanked. The Americans had lost 9 Shermans in the engagement, 3 destroyed outright, 2 disabled and burning, 4 disabled but still firing. But 23 Shermans had pushed through the defensive line, and Weber's Tiger was now taking fire from 3 directions simultaneously. The Tiger's armor held. The 75mm rounds from the Sherman's guns struck Weber's frontal plate and turret like hammers on an anvil, each impact ringing through the crew compartment with a sound like standing inside a church bell during a funeral toll. But they did not penetrate. The Tiger's armor was still superior. The mathematics still held. What did not hold was Weber's ammunition supply. The Tiger carried 92 rounds. Weber had fired 47. His loader's hands were blistered from handling hot shell casings. The gun barrel was so hot that the thermal expansion had begun affecting accuracy. And the Shermans kept coming. Lieutenant Kaufmann's voice on the radio, strained now, professional veneer cracking. All units, withdraw to rally point Bravo. Execute immediately. This position is no longer tenable. Weber gave the order to his driver. The Tiger's Maybach engine roared. The massive tank lurched backward out of its defensive position, tracks chewing through Norman soil. As they withdrew, Weber watched through his commander's cupola as American infantry moved forward, occupying the positions the Tigers had just abandoned, and behind them, more Shermans were arriving. Fresh Shermans. Replacement Shermans. Always more Shermans. The strategic implications of this reality were becoming clear to German commanders throughout the summer of 1944, though few wanted to acknowledge it openly. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, commander of German forces in the West, wrote in a confidential report to OKW, "The enemy's material superiority has reached a point where tactical skill and superior equipment can no longer compensate. We destroy their tanks, and they replace them within days. They destroy our tanks, and replacement takes months, if it occurs at all." The numbers were devastating. By August 1944, American forces in France had taken delivery of 1,326 replacement Sherman tanks to replace combat losses. Germany had received 62 replacement Panthers and 11 replacement Tigers to the Western Front in the same period. American tank crews were being told by their supply officers that if their tank was damaged, they should simply abandon it and request a new one. Recovering and repairing damaged tanks was sometimes less efficient than just building new ones. German tank crews, conversely, were being ordered to recover damaged tanks at all costs, even under fire, because each lost tank was strategically irreplaceable. Panzer crews were conducting recovery operations that cost lives to save machines, while American crews were abandoning damaged but repairable Shermans because fresh replacements would arrive faster than repairs could be completed. This was abundance warfare, and it was something the German military had no doctrine to counter. The Tiger embodied a particular German philosophy of warfare: qualitative superiority achieved through technological excellence and superior training. Each Tiger crew underwent 6 months of intensive training. Each Tiger represented the pinnacle of German industrial capability. The assumption, embedded in the Tiger's design, was that Germany could achieve battlefield dominance through smaller numbers of vastly superior weapons systems. The Sherman embodied a different philosophy: adequate quality produced in overwhelming quantity, supported by logistics systems that treated machines as disposable and crews as precious. The Sherman was not designed to be the best tank. It was designed to be good enough, producible in vast numbers, easily repaired, simple to operate, and survivable for its crew. In the deserts of North Africa, in the mountains of Italy, in the early battles of Normandy, the Tiger philosophy had seemed vindicated. Tigers had destroyed enemy armor at absurd kill ratios 10-1, 15-1, 20-1, in exceptional cases. But kill ratios did not matter when the enemy could absorb those kills and continue attacking with fresh forces. By July 1944, German intelligence estimated that American forces in France possessed approximately 3,400 operational Sherman tanks, with replacement rates exceeding losses by a factor of 3. Germany's entire operational tank force on the Western Front, including all models, numbered approximately 670 vehicles, with replacement rates failing to keep pace with losses. The mathematics of attrition were inescapable. And mathematical certainty was a cold comfort when your invincible Tiger was withdrawing in front of a wave of supposedly inferior Shermans that kept advancing no matter how many you destroyed. Ernst Weber fought through the Normandy campaign for 43 more days before his Tiger threw a track during a withdrawal near Falaise. The tank was immobilized with a broken final drive, a repairable failure that would have taken 3 days to fix with proper equipment. But there was no equipment. There was no time. American Shermans were advancing from 3 directions. Weber and his crew placed demolition charges inside their Tiger's fighting compartment, destroying the gun breech and fire control systems to prevent capture, and withdrew on foot. Weber never commanded another Tiger. There were no replacement Tigers available. He was reassigned to a Panzer IV, a medium tank, inferior in every way to the Tiger he had trained on, but at least it was available. And even that assignment lasted only 2 weeks before the Panzer IV was destroyed by American fighter bombers near the Seine crossing. He spent the final months of the war in infantry units, retreating across France, across the Rhine, into the collapsing remnants of Germany. And everywhere he went, he saw the same pattern. German units with superior equipment and training being overwhelmed by American and British forces that simply had more of everything. More tanks, more trucks, more artillery, more ammunition, more food, more fuel, more everything. In April 1945, Weber surrendered to American forces near Munich. He was processed through a POW camp where, for the first time, he saw the scale of American logistics firsthand. The camp was supplied by a convoy of trucks that arrived daily 200 vehicles, each carrying supplies from depots that seemed inexhaustible. The American Guards ate 3 meals per day from field kitchens that served fresh meat, canned vegetables, white bread, coffee with real sugar. The POWs received 2 meals daily of similar quality better food than Weber had eaten in the Wehrmacht for the final year of the war. An American supply officer, making conversation through a translator, mentioned casually that the camp was supplied from a depot 50 miles away, and that depot was one of 47 similar installations in southern Germany alone. Each depot was supplied by rail and truck convoy from ports in France. Each depot maintained inventory sufficient for 30 days of operations. Each depot had more tinned meat in storage than Weber had seen in an entire year of Wehrmacht field rations. The officer said this without boasting, as a simple statement of fact, the way one might describe the weather. Weber understood then what he had been fighting against. Not better tanks, not braver soldiers, but a nation that had industrialized warfare to a degree that made individual courage and tactical excellence strategically irrelevant. America had not defeated Germany through superior tanks. America had defeated Germany by building adequate tanks faster than Germany could destroy them, and supporting those tanks with logistics systems that treated machines as expendable and treated trained personnel as precious. The Tiger had been the better tank. The mathematics of armor, penetration, and gun performance confirmed it. But the Sherman had been the right tank, designed not for duels but for mass production, not for technical superiority, but for strategic persistence. One nation had built tanks to win battles, the other had built tanks to win a war. And in the end, the distinction had mattered more than any ballistics table or armor thickness chart could measure. There is a photograph, taken in July 1944 near Caen, that captured something essential about the nature of that summer's fighting. The photograph shows a destroyed Tiger tank, its turret blown off by an internal ammunition explosion, surrounded by 4 destroyed Sherman tanks within a 200-meter radius. The Tiger crew had fought brilliantly 4 kills before being overwhelmed, a 4-to-1 kill ratio, precisely the kind of tactical excellence German doctrine emphasized. But in the background of that photograph, barely visible in the distance, you can see more Shermans advancing. 5 of them, fresh from depot, moving forward to occupy the position the destroyed Shermans and Tigers had fought over. The ground itself had not changed. The tactical situation had not fundamentally altered. But the Americans had 5 more tanks available to continue the advance, and the Germans had nothing to replace their destroyed Tiger. The photograph was found in the effects of an American tank commander who had written on the back of it, "They're good, but we're many." 7 words that summarized a strategic reality more clearly than 1,000 pages of after-action reports. The Sherman tank would go on to be produced in greater numbers than any other tank in history, 49,234 units by the end of the war, with peak production reaching 1,504 units in a single month. The Tiger I ended production in August 1944 after 1,347 units had been built. Both tanks served their nation's strategic goals. One embodied the principle that excellence in individual systems could achieve victory through superior performance. The other embodied the principle that adequate systems produced in overwhelming numbers, supported by logistics that made replacement faster than destruction, could achieve victory through strategic persistence. In the hedgerows of Normandy, in the forests of the Ardennes, across the plains of Germany itself, that contest between philosophies played out in thousands of engagements. And in most individual engagements, the Tiger achieved superior kill ratios. But kill ratios measured the wrong thing. They measured tactical success when strategic capacity was what determined outcomes. By May 1945, when Germany surrendered, the Wehrmacht had lost approximately 5,000 tanks on the Western Front, every tank type, all models, everything Germany had built. American forces had lost approximately 7,200 Shermans in the European theatre. But America ended the war with more operational Shermans in Europe than it had started with on D-Day, because replacement production had exceeded losses by a factor of 2. Germany ended the war with no operational tanks at all, because there was no fuel to run them, no spare parts to maintain them, and no industrial capacity remaining to replace them. The Tiger had been designed as a Wunderwaffen, a wonder weapon that would achieve victory through technological supremacy. But the Sherman had been designed as something more profound and less glamorous, a tool of industrial democracy, mass-produced and mass-deployed, adequate in performance but overwhelming in quantity, supported by an economic system that could build, deploy, repair, and replace them faster than any enemy could destroy them. The Sherman was not a better tank than the Tiger. It was a better answer to the question of how to win a modern industrial war. Ernst Weber lived until 1987. He worked as a mechanic in Stuttgart, repairing Mercedes-Benz automobiles, and rarely spoke about his war service. But in interviews conducted by military historians in the 1,970 seconds, he was asked about his experiences fighting against American armor, and his answer was recorded. "I was trained to believe that quality would defeat quantity, that superior equipment and superior training would overcome numerical inferiority. And in each battle, that belief was confirmed. I could destroy more enemy tanks than they could destroy of mine. But what I did not understand until too late was that they did not need to destroy my tank. They only needed to keep replacing theirs faster than I could destroy them. They were not trying to win battles. They were trying to outlast us. And they did." He paused, then added, "The Tiger was a magnificent machine, the best tank of the war, technically. But the Sherman was the right machine for the war that was actually being fought. We built tanks to be superior. They built tanks to be sufficient, and sufficient, endlessly replaced, defeated, superior." In those words lies the fundamental lesson of armored warfare in the Second World War's Western theatre. Not that quantity always defeats quality. There are countless examples throughout history where small elite forces defeated larger conventional forces. But that in an industrial total war between peer industrial powers, quantity is itself a quality. The ability to produce, deploy, sustain, maintain, and replace equipment faster than the enemy can destroy it becomes the decisive factor that makes individual technical superiority tactically advantageous, but strategically insufficient. The Sherman kept coming because America had built a war economy capable of producing Shermans faster than Germany could destroy them. The Tiger stopped coming because Germany had built a war economy capable of producing technically superior weapons in numbers that could not be sustained under the attrition of total war. And, in the hedgerows of Normandy, on a summer morning in 1944, a young German tank commander watched through his optics as the American Shermans kept advancing despite everything his training and doctrine had promised him, and understood perhaps for the first time that he was not fighting against inferior tanks. He was fighting against a different kind of war entirely. A war where his superiority in individual engagements was rendered irrelevant by an opponent who had industrialized persistence itself, who had transformed adequacy into an overwhelming strategic advantage, who had built not wonder weapons but sufficient weapons in such vast numbers that sufficiency became the ultimate wonder. The Tiger crews were shocked when Shermans kept coming after direct hits, not because the Shermans were invulnerable, but because behind each Sherman destroyed were 2 more Shermans arriving, and behind those were 5 more, and behind those were factories in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania producing another Sherman every 60 minutes, and behind those factories was an industrial democracy that had converted its entire peacetime economy into a machine for producing war materiel at scales that made tactical excellence strategically irrelevant. They kept coming because America had built a system where they could always keep coming, and no amount of armor, thickness, or gun penetration could solve that equation.